Welcome in, LSU baseball fans. I am lucky to be joined by our very own Jake McKeever, the head man of SEC baseball here at College Baseball Central, Texas A&M expert extraordinaire, and he's here to help us break down this Texas A&M series. And Jake, I appreciate you coming on with me.
Alex, thanks for having me. I think after that Friday night, Saturday morning, though, I might become an LSU homer. That was just so much fun. That was just pandemonium.
Yeah, it was wild, man. That was a wild series. Yeah, I mean that game just, 1 a.m. and the box is still rocking. It's craziness.
I thought we were going to have a field storm, to be honest with you. I think I texted you that. And you're like, no, there's too much netting. At the old
Yeah,
box, pre-net, I think we would have had a field storm.
probably. Yeah, I think they got netting all the way down the foul lines now, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. But looking at this A&M team, man, they have been hot the last few weeks. Even that series, even the sweep against Texas. I mean, they only lost each game by 1 run. It was combined 3 runs. They got swept by. What's really been fueling Texas A&M's resurgence the last few weeks?
I would say just the chippiness and the chip on their shoulder, I think has really fueled this team. I know that last summer, that was every single college baseball talking head was, oh, A&M's going to have this big chip on their shoulder. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't really see it a ton in the fall or in the summer. Like, it felt like they were the kid whose like parents got divorced and then got invited to the birthday party. And, eventually 2, 3 years go down the road and you don't feel so bad for the kid anymore because it's like, okay, it is what it is. I think that the criticism of everybody telling them that they suck, that they stink, they kind of just like, I know it sounds really weird to say, but after they got no hit by Doyle, it's like all the pressure of the season just got off. He was like, yeah, no one believes in us anyway. Like, let's just go out, see how we play. And they immediately run roll Tennessee. They go to South Carolina, win some gritty series there, go up to Fayetteville, take 2 of 3. And then, like you said, they were in all 3 of those games against Texas. Just Dylan Valentis was better that day. They're literally a Dylan Valentis away from taking 2 of 3 of a series.
Yeah, man, it's been pretty wild, this the turnaround. I think, just kind of looking at the stats, offensively, they've been, they had been at the bottom of the league, and now they're kind of, I mean, they're still hitting 253 in conference, but that's not great.
That was before the Texas weekend, though. I think that there was a point where they had actually had a higher average than the year before when they were number 1 in the country. They hit more home runs. They've had a really, really nice resurgence from some of those guys that you really didn't expect to break out. Blake Benderup, since he's made some tweaks to his swing to be more Giancarlo Stanton-esque, if you will, and the return on investment's been really great. He was an SEC Player of the Week. Bear Harrison, who again didn't start at the beginning of the year because Jacob Galloway was starting at catcher, he's really kind of turned up the power numbers. Ben Royo is another guy that didn't start at the beginning of the year. He's only starting because Grahovic is out for the year. He was on an absolute terror all weekend. He had 7 RBIs against Lamar last night, hit 2 home runs, feet away from hitting a third. They've just been getting a lot of production from guys that they didn't think that they were going to get at the beginning of the year. I think that's really been the secret.
Yeah, I mean, and Jace Lavalette has really returned to form too. He was really scuffling in the beginning of the year, but he's really turned it on the last few weeks too.
Yeah, he's going to need a bounce back weekend, though. He kind of struggled against Texas over the weekend. I will say, in his defense, that place is just a graveyard for hitters, as I'm sure you remember from a few weeks ago. So he had, I think, 2 or 3 of his balls die at the warning track that if they get up into that A&M jet stream are just going to be 10, 15 feet over.
And looking at this A&M pitching staff, it seems like Prager, he's still Prager. I mean, he's still a really good pitcher, but man, he just seems a little bit down from last year. What's going on with him?
Yeah, his velo's been down, I think, in a few of his starts. He was around 90, 92 last year. He's been closer to 88, 90. If you would have talked about it this last week, we probably would have said had a completely different tone. But even though they lost on Friday night, he gave him a tremendous, tremendous opportunity to win. It was really only 2 pitches that he missed. Even the week before against Arkansas, I know he got chased in the 5th. I think he had not necessarily bad luck, but the ERA didn't really tell the whole story. But I think that there was a time just based off of A&M's struggles in the bullpen that the starters were kind of pressing a little bit, which, anytime that happens, you kind of always struggle. And then B, I think a ton of teams were waiting them out. Because that if that was kind of the secret to their success earlier is that they're 7 innings and you don't need to have bullpen, woes if you only need 6 outs to win games. A lot of teams kind of picked up on that, waited them out a little bit, drove up their pitch counts. And I think that that's kind of been a secret. But, the rise of Weston Moss, who I know last weekend he didn't really pitch his best. He had a little bit of a stomach bug. He's been a really big piece for them. Caden Wilson's been really nails out of the bullpen too as well. And then the resurgence of Luke Jackson, who's kind of turning into, the guy that everybody expected to be when he was coming in as a recruit. I think that LSU has the pitching advantage on Friday, Saturday. Just depending on where LSU goes Sunday, I think Miles Patton's better than the LSU Sunday guy. And then obviously the bullpen for A&M. I really want to lean a little bit more towards it. But again, it's not as excuse me. It's a lot like LSU's where there's a lot of guys that have strung together nice appearances and are really highly rated recruits, but you always kind of hold their breath when these guys come in.
Yeah, that's kind of been the thing. Every time an LSU bullpen arm comes in that not named, Zach Cowan or Kason Evans, you're just like,
he might not be a bullpen arm anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like Connor Benj. Connor Benj, his last outing 2 weeks ago, he comes in and with late in game, and then immediately gives up 3 walks and hits a batter, and then Jay comes in and pulls him and doesn't even, Jay always makes sure that the current pitcher hands the ball off to the next pitcher. But now he walked up there and he was like, "No, give me the ball, get out of here, like you're done." And then we haven't seen Connor Benj since.
Yeah, Chase Shores is another one that's kind of, obviously he didn't have a story like that, but they move him into the bullpen. He kind of gets walkitis, if you will. It'll be interesting to see how Jay uses him this weekend because he got demoted off of Sunday. Sunday guy absolutely shoves. He's definitely not getting it back now. He comes in on that Saturday game against Tennessee. That's really where Tennessee kind of blew it open too as well. But I'd be interested to see some of the other guys, like how they kind of piece it together. But the good news is that they usually get long starts out of Ianson and Anderson. It almost kind of reminds me of, when they had Skeens and they had Thatcher Hurd, where when both of those guys were on, you only needed 12 outs to get 2 wins. Obviously, Kate Anderson isn't Skeens or anything like that, but that's a really, really big key, I think, for LSU is to have those guys go out, get 21 outs, get 18 outs. Because again, you don't really have a lot of bullpen issues when you need single-digit outs in games.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely the game plan. Get those guys as deep into the game. Shorten the game as much as possible. Use as few arms early in that series as possible. And even though Kason Evans, shoved on Sunday, I would not expect him to be the Sunday starter.
Really?
Yeah.
I saw a few LSU fans kind of said that too. Like when I tweeted that, Patton Evans is going to be must-see TV. They kind of did that Lee Corso, not so fast on me.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see whenever the pitching matchups are released is probably going to be a Sunday TBA. And if Jay needs Evans, like say Cowan comes in and throws 3 innings on Friday, and then going into the 7th inning, LSU's got a lead on Saturday, and Ianson needs, his pitch count's too high or whatever, Evans is going in the game.
Yeah.
Jay is going to throw Evans that day, in relief. He's going to get the 2 wins, and then he'll figure it out on Sunday.
Yeah, there's a lot of schools that do that. Florida does something very, very similar. Texas, obviously, they got 2 wins, and they threw Volantis and Grubbs. But that was kind of their plan, too, as well, was, we have these 4 or 5 pitchers that we expect to use. We're just counting outs to try and get us into the weekend. Do you think we see kind of – I know that Jay's mentioned it a few times with Cowan about how he only uses it, like the second they get down, he takes him out. Do you think that that'll still be the strategy that they roll with going forward?
Because
it's a risk. I think it's a huge, I know that sounds really weird to say, but I've talked to a few other SEC pitching coaches that are like, if we're down 3 runs and we need to leave it at 3 runs, we're going to throw our guy in there. But, Yeski and Jay, they did it. Yeski did it at A&M with a few of those guys where they would really try and keep those bullpen guys fresh. And they really do want to use Zach Cowan as hey, we have a 1-run lead. We know Cowan's going to get us these outs and keep us this 1-run lead.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen them put Cowan in a game in which they were if they were losing by more than one run. I've only
They took
seen
him
them.
out on Friday, I remember. 'Cause they
Um,
didn't
well,
he pitch Friday?
he pitched. I think
He
the
didn't pitch that
last.
much. Maybe he got,
No, he
like,
only
in,
threw
out.
like 12 pitches maybe or something like that. Um,
Yeah, they brought him in when it was I think 2-0, and they got him in to get, like, I think 2 batters, and then when LSU didn't score in the bottom half, they took him out, I think is what it
yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I
Yeah,
think that's they're only gonna really burn Evans or Cowan if they know they're gonna get the win.
yeah, and I think they're gonna from when I was talking to Andrew about it, he said that they're gonna leave Schmidt into that midweek rotation. They don't wanna mess up his confidence or anything like that, so I don't think we should expect to see Schmidt at all, and
You
again,
might
it's
see Schmidt like get a few batters, maybe, but yeah, I wouldn't expect to see him in any like significant role. I think a guy that you could see that's maybe making a surge that could be really important for LSU this weekend is Jacob Myers. Um, you've seen the last couple of weeks in a situation where they didn't want to put in Cowan or Evans, but they needed a strikeout.
yeah, they put
They'll
him
go
in.
to Myers. Because if you look at Myers's stats on the year, I think he's given up 2 hits all year. And I mean, he's given up a ton of walks, but his stuff is just so ridiculous. His fastball has been up to 99, and the ride and carry through the zone is just absurd. I mean, it, it might be a better fastball when you just look at a true four-seam fastball. It might be a better fastball than Ty Floyd's. And
Yeah,
Ty
it
Floyd has
explodes. That's what
an
Tennessee was
excellent
saying, is that
fastball.
it sneaks up on you was the term that they used.
Yeah, so that's a guy that you can look at to if you need a strikeout. There's guys on base and you got to have a strikeout. Then they're going to go to Jacob Myers. So that's a guy that. And then Jaden Newt had a really good outing against Southeastern, and he's put a few really good outings together on the in midweeks reliefs. So I think he's a guy that maybe you could see this weekend too.
I think this
That's a
will be
good.
one where Jay really does pull out all the stops to try and steal one. I think that that's what we'll probably see, and then from there he'll try and piece stuff together. I think we might see. Remember how that Tennessee game on Saturday? It was just like they were just throwing stuff at a wall, seeing if it'll stick. That
Yeah.
that really is, I think, what they're trying to do outside of Cowan, if you will, is just is it going to be Maverick Rizzi? Is it going to be DJ Primo? Can Chase Shores rise to the occasion? Because a lot of people actually forget, way back during Chase Shores' freshman year, he started that Friday game in A&M, and that was kind of like his coming out party, and that was where I still remember this quote from Jim Slossnagel. He goes, how many 6'4", 100-mile-per-hour guys does Jay Johnson have? Like, it
Yeah, I
was
remember
just
him saying that.
crazy that it was like Paul Skeens and Paul Skeens light, if you will. But I mean, it's the other thing I kind of want to talk about is A&M is a supremely left-handed heavy rotation. They have 3 lefty starters. We've seen in the past where once that calendar clicks over to May, all bets are off for Jay doing kind of these roster moves to do stuff like that. Like if you remember way back with Joe Bear, how they were doing a lot of stuff with Trey Morgan, playing him in the outfield. The second it hit May 1st, Trey Morgan moves to first, Joe Bear moves into the outfield. Do you think we see kind of that platoon style that we've come to being accustomed to from Jay in 2025? Or do you think he kind of gets down brass knuckle business? This is our roster. This is how we're getting Omaha's with these 9 guys.
I think the one position that you might see the platoon at is going to be DH. I think everywhere else they're pretty much set. Like I think Jake Brown's going to be in right field. Michael Braswell is going to be at third base. But I think Ethan Fry and Josh Pearson, I think you're going to see platoon at DH, and with
Larson, when you get a righty.
yeah, I mean you could get Larson in there too. So like for example, since A&M's gonna be starting a bunch of lefties, right? All 3 of their starters are lefties, so you're gonna see Pearson in the lineup at DH every day. But then if Pearson comes up and there's a right-handed reliever in, don't be surprised if they pinch hit Ethan Fry. And then if a lefty reliever comes up and Ethan Fry comes up, then you might see an Ashton Larson, come in at that point. or Dalton Beck, something like that. So I think at DH, that's where he's going to be playing,
The
tweaking with the
games, if you
lineup.
will. Yeah, he's not going to play him with Curriell at the top of that lineup. Yeah,
No.
I mean, A&M, like I said, they go Prager, Lampkin, and Patton. Patton's a transfer coming over, fairly experienced arm, really big portal addition for them. Their supreme bullpen arms, Weston Moss, who's a righty. He's looked really, really good, obviously, against Texas. He was a little bit under the weather. And then, like I mentioned, Caden Wilson's a left-hander. I believe Luke Jackson is right-handed, but let me double-check that for you before I tell you completely wrong. Brad Arudis is a right-hander for him. You might see Clayton Freshcorn. He pitched a lot at the beginning of the year. That was a guy that they really expected to kind of take over and be that closer. Obviously, it really hasn't worked out for him. Luke Jackson throws right-handed. That's kind of their bullpen arms that they roll with. But again, for reference, as I read off some of their stats here, Prager has 62 innings, Lampkin has 60, Patton has 57, Weston Moss has 38. So exactly which four guys you're getting out of that bullpen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and Lampkin and Prager, they're right up there as far as innings pitched with Anderson and Ianson.
There was a point in the season where Patton actually had the most innings pitched, like at the start of SEC play. I think he was who had pitched the most out of anybody in the SEC. I mean, obviously he's kind of returned to form a little bit in SEC play, but I mean, I use the analogy with Andrew in our show that's coming out tomorrow. A&M runs the triple option with their pitching rotation. If you can stop the fullback dive, that's really all that they have. If you can stop their three horses at the start of that rotation, they really don't have a lot. But again, like when you play in high school, when you played teams that ran that triple option, they usually run it pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, A&M's frontline pitching is really good, but LSU has hit frontline pitching really well this year, with the exception of
Doyle,
Auburn. Doyle didn't hit great, but I mean, they were able to
competitive at bats. Jay said
right.
that they're very competitive at bats.
The Auburn pitcher whose LSU transfer's name escapes me right now. The Auburn Friday guy.
Fisher or Dutton?
No, he's their Saturday guy.
Dutton. Sam
Dutton. Yes, Sam Dutton. That was their worst outing against a starting pitcher all season.
Because I think they had really competitive at bats against Doyle. Do you think LSU has road issues? Because they went and lost to Texas, they went and lost at Auburn, but they also swept in Norman. They also dominated, if you will, in Frisco. So it's kind of like a tale of two teams, if you will, when they go on the road.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's still kind of to be determined because, like you said, it's just kind of been a little inconsistent on the road. Auburn was by far their worst series of the year, and hopefully it stays that way. But they were really, even they lost a series at Texas, but they were in. They should have honestly. I'm not gonna go that far.
I'll say won Saturday. If they had a bullpen that they trusted, remember that the game just like flipped in the fifth inning. Like LSU was dominated early, and then it just flipped because LSU couldn't get outs. And
they couldn't throw a strike. Couldn't find somebody to come in there and throw a strike.
I remember us talking early in the season about their strike ball issues. And you had said at the time it was from mostly guys that probably aren't going to see SEC time. Is that still kind of the case where, obviously with Shores, I say that and I went and looked it up. Shores had one walk. It felt like it was a lot more, but it was only one walk.
Well, Shores' problem this year, has been walks, yes, but then also he's getting hit. He's got a 300 batting average against, which is not great for a starting pitcher. Yes, no, I think the walk issue is a real issue. Outside of your top four arms of Anderson, Ianson, Cowan, and Evans, anybody else in that lineup is capable of walking the bases loaded at any point.
That's very similar to A&M's. I think there's going to be one of these games. It might be Saturday, like we saw with LSU. It's really weird because LSU kind of had their off the rails game Saturday, and Tennessee had their Sunday. If A&M, there's going to be a game where the pitching just completely goes off the rails for both these teams.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe assumption.
They have really dangerous lineups too as well. LSU Jays actually played extremely well in College Station. The last time they were there in 23, they went and dominated. It was really weird because they went and dominated. I think they swept A&M the last time that they were there in 23.
I would have to let me go look. I don't remember.
I remember Skeens like boat raced them.
Well, Skeens boat raced basically everybody that year.
That was the one too where I remember I was at that game and Schwarzenegger was like, "Yeah, we didn't even play bad. We just got schemed." Let me see. I got it right here because it was the first SEC weekend of the season. Oh, they won on Sunday. They had a Sunday salvage. That was what it was. Shores pitched. Shores line that day for reference as it pulls up here. 3 innings, 2 earned runs. Christian Little blew it in the 9th for him.
That well, that was kind of a theme for
Yeah, they
Christian
were
Little's
3-0. They had 3 runs in the 4 runs in the first, and then A&M won 8-6 because of Christian Little. Riley Cooper was not very effective. Thatcher Hurd started. So who started that Saturday? Was it Ty Floyd?
Yeah, Ty Floyd.
And then last year, I think who took that series? Was it A&M? No, LSU did. LSU took 2-3.
LSU won the series, yeah, because that was the start of LSU clawing their way back into the postseason conversation.
That was the one where I think that they had they scored runs late, and then on Sunday A&M just exercised demons and kicked the snot out of them. Yes. A&M did beat them in 22 though. I remember.
Yeah,
it went took 2-3.
Jay's first year.
Yeah, because it was kind of a shocking 2-3 if you remember.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, that nobody really expected, but that was Schloss's first year too, right?
Yeah, and they had a ton of growing pain Schloss's first year.
Yeah, but they still ended up in Omaha.
They figured it. I think that was when they really figured it out. They never swept anybody either. That was what the weirdest part of it was. They would just 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3.
Yeah, but this is this series. I'm nervous about this series for LSU because A&M is coming in and they're in wounded animal mode at this point.
They're desperate. They need to go. I was talking to one of the players on the team. Obviously, there are RPIs. I haven't seen where it is after that Lamar game. I assume it's in the 40s still, but they need 5 SEC wins. They play Missouri, so they need 5 of their next 9 with 3 built in, obviously. So if I was talking to one of the committee members, he was like, "Yeah," he goes, "If A&M takes 2 of 3 this weekend, goes and sweeps at Missouri, go ahead and wrap it up. Doesn't matter that last weekend." So, A&M's going to pull out all of the stops to try and get it. Obviously, LSU still wants to host, be in that hosting conversation. I looked it up. A&M's at 38 in the RPI. So, you really want to kind of try and get into that 30 range. And Missouri's going to tank that RPI a little bit.
Yeah, Missouri's going to hurt. But
I think Alabama dropped 5 spots, and they have very similar schedules, if you will. But, LSU needs it from a hosting standpoint.
Yeah, to be a top 8, LSU needs to, I think if LSU gets to 19 SEC wins, I think that's going to be enough to get a top 8 seed. 20 is kind of the benchmark. That's the point on which anybody, no SEC team that has had 20 conference wins has never not been a top 8.
But the flip side of that is I think LSU really needs this one this weekend too, because we saw it 2 years ago with South Carolina where they really docked them if they were bad on the road. Remember how they were like a 10 or 12 and they pushed them all the way down to 14 and had to go play Florida?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, so they really – I've talked about it with Georgia a little bit too, where you really have to, win a marquee series on the road. Obviously, OU being as ranked as high as they are, but again, it is a committee of people, so you got to kind of remind them that you're good on the road, I think is another big thing for LSU.
Yeah, I think, it's going to be an interesting series for sure. I know you'll be there, right?
Yeah, no. Mike and I will be at Arkansas Arkansas, Texas Friday, and then OU Ole Miss on Sunday.
Okay. Well, then I'll be there on Sunday.
Friday or Crankin' Hog Saturday.
up in Kansas.
And we're gonna be cranking hog at Hog.
That's the first. I had a Kansas fan tell me that on Twitter the other day, and I was like, I don't know what this means.
Noah said it best, where he was like, let me find it. Cranking Hog equals cheering for Kansas. At Hog is the Hogs. They're Hogland Stadium.
Yeah, that was a new one for me. I had not heard that before. So
I have a little double signal.
Oh, geez.
Pretty fun. I think that was West Virginia. West Virginia did it.
Oh, do they bring out the shake weight too? Like, I don't know.
Have you seen the body blade thing?
Oh yeah.
That one looks really weird.
All right, man. Well, I'm gonna have to get you on the record here for a prediction. So what say you about what happens this weekend?
I'll go LSU 2 of 3. I think that Cade Anderson wins Friday. Anthony Ianson shoves Saturday, and then Sunday A&M kind of sneaks up on him and steals it. So that's kind of how I see it playing out. I think Ianson's the best. Ianson on Saturday, I think, is LSU's best bet to win, because you never know what's going to happen on Friday. And then A&M, if it gets to Patton, if they're both even, I think A&M takes a series.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think LSU takes the first two, and then A&M gets one on Sunday. But I am nervous about it. Like, I don't feel real great about that pick. Like,
it's the SEC. You never feel good about it. Well, yeah. there's one series a week you feel good about.
Well, yeah. Is Missouri really going to go 0-30? Is that really what's about to happen?
They are. I've had a few Mississippi State fans who have told me, like, hey, Mississippi State does weird things. With Mississippi State, Missouri gets weird. They're not going to lose this weekend to Georgia. A&M's desperate in every sense of the word to win those 3 games. Let's see what Mississippi State is historically against Missouri. 13-7.
Wow, they
lost the series in 2020. They lost the series last year in Starkville. They took 2 of 3. Yeah, they need to chill out. Oh, wait, no, they lost in 22. They lost in 22 up in Columbia. They lost 2 of 3.
Well, that makes sense. That was the year that they were awful.
They lost 2 of 3 in Columbia in 18. So actually, they haven't taken a series in Columbia since 2014. Granted, they don't play a lot.
Yeah.
They're not Texas where they have to play Missouri every year.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you you hopping on with me, and you have a fun weekend with Micah traveling around, and we'll catch you later.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.